So hello everybody. One thing which I noticed that we have here a pretty focused and really serious-minded crowd. So I really thought that we probably should have some kind of an icebreaker. Well, at least I would try. So before coming here, I kind of really tried to figure it out. So what's the Danske Tech Nights about? So I went to YouTube and tried to see what kind of previous shows were here. And one thing which I was really trying to find, some kind of common trait which would unify all the speakers, especially the ones who came like from some third-party companies, like me, for example. And I basically figured out that most of the people were, they were having some kind of ties to either the Danske Bank or the mobile pay. So actually, I'm not a big exception here. Like a few years ago, I was actually applying to the mobile pay as a senior mobile engineer, and I was rejected. So, having said all of that, my name is Edgar, and I'm the VP of Engineering for the mobile and POS domain at Kevin, where we do the research and development for the most craziest payments ideas you could ever imagine. And today I will be presenting one of our R&D projects, which actually got pretty successful. So we got one of the largest in the history of the region, Series A investments of $65 million. And sure, I will try to share the story behind what's the mindset to do something what nobody else in the world was able to do before. But first of all, I would like to explain what's the Kevin about. So let's make it clear that Kevin McAllister is not the founder of the company, right? And it starts from the lowercase k and ends with a dot. It's real. The name maybe looks a bit quirky, a bit different, but this is who you are. We are trying to, to look at the payments from a really different angle, and probably this is what really enabled us to innovate. So I joined Kevin in 2021, and I remember we were like in a 30-something employees, and today I can be proud to say that I have colleagues from 30 countries, and our payment infrastructure is available for 350 million users. And this expansion really was propelled by this amazing product we were able to deliver. So we basically created a new payment infrastructure, which basically created a revolution and waves across the whole payment industry. I still remember, the first post of our founder on LinkedIn, which basically got like hundreds of thousands of previews when we were able to achieve, the first payment using our technology. But in order to explain how it works, probably should bring some comparison to the existing payment technology, which is basically card rails, like the most popular mean of payments. So as you see, we have customer and the merchant on an opposite side of the chain. And we have multiple components between them. So, when you, let's say, do the payment needs to go through different parts of the chain. And sure, if you own a business, that means that every part of the chain consumes and commands some kind of the fee. So you probably understand that card payments are not really cheap. So this is why if you go to some kind of, village in Zukia or something, sometimes you can be asked to pay like for 10 euros or something in order to your payment to be accepted, mainly because of the fees. Another thing, but the payment journey is really long. Your payment might take up to 10 to 14 days to reach a merchant's bank account. And if you're a small merchant, for you it's really important to have a cash flow all the time. So you sell, you restock, you sell, you restock. And just imagine, you're some kind of Pirikupas from Marijampolė. You want to sell your Volkswagen Passat for 2,000 euros in order to buy your wife a coat. And here comes your customer and he says, you know what, but nobody uses cash anymore, so can it maybe pay by card? And then you think, all right, so the code will arrive in 10 to 14 days? Nah, I need cash. And that's one also of the limitation why the cashless adoption is still lacking. Because now basically the government says, we are limiting this and that, so this is why there's an intention to transition to the cashless economy. And also, the more components in the chain there are, the security then becomes compromised. And the most important thing for me, especially who is responsible for the innovations at Kevin, is that the innovation on top of this existing legacy payment flow is really, really hard. So that means if you have some really crazy idea, like you want to create your own loyalty service or whatever, you just can't get in between of this chain, nowhere. The only way to do for you can only build something on top of it. And that's it. And that means even longer payment journey, even bigger fees, and so on. So just as a practical example, let's say we're talking about Google or Apple Pay, which probably most of you use, isn't it? So if you do the payment through Apple or Google Pay, you do the same card payment, and just instead of only paying card fees, you also pay the fees for Apple and Google. So, Houston, I think, do we have a problem? Well, not anymore, because I believe that we have managed finally to solve it. So what's the difference here? So first of all, we kicked the card networks out of the picture. And our main aim was to create an infrastructure which is easy to innovate on. So that means what we provide the control for our partners to manage how everything is managed before the payment happens, during the payment, and after the payment ends. And I understand there are so many payment experts here, and you would say, oh, it's yet another alternative payment method or something, please maybe tell something new and so on. But actually, I believe we managed to crack the code. First of all, our solution is available using existing infrastructure. So that means you as a merchant, you don't need to stick any of those ugly QR codes. You don't need to buy additional hardware on top of a terminal, in order to make it work. Our solution can be used using the traditional POS terminals if merchant really wants it. Another thing, we provide the same great user experience. So, our aim was that, if you are coming to some kind of grocery store, you don't need to even say that you want to pay with Kevin. You just take your mobile device, you tap the POS terminal, and payment happens. And that's it. So that's our aim. And sure, no card processing fees because we're not using the card rails. And most importantly, now that Perikupas from Marijampolė can really be calm because he'll get his code right away. But now it kind of sounds really great, isn't it? But it definitely wasn't the case 2 years ago. So how it started, I actually really value this photo. It's like our first team photo ever in July of 2021. We were like 4 guys which had absolutely no idea, how to make things happen. But out of respect for everybody, for our amazing team, I would like to actually really shortly introduce some of them. So here we have Thomas, who is our amazing, decent backend engineer who really made it happen and really helped out and did the extra miles when it's needed. Also Aurimas, who is our Android engineer, whom I had a really big honor to mentor right from junior days to now being a staff engineer and being one of the best specialists in the country. And as well as, how about our superstar product lead, who really did lots of extra miles when it comes to product and business. And actually he also owns his own product management channel on the Spotify, so feel free to approach him and ask about it. So yeah. So where did this idea even came from? So beforehand company was more or less focused on the online payments, e-commerce. So we had this pay by bank solution, which basically recommended for our merchants. And we had the ideas, how about going maybe a bit more to the retail world, to the offline world, because there are so many now payment processors who provide their own services, and there's big competition and so on. And back then, for us this idea was pretty like, okay, it's something new, something really interesting, but we did not know from where to start. And when you don't know where to start, you basically start from fundamentals. So first of all, what's the parts of this solution? So first one, there's probably some POS terminal, and in order to make it work, well, probably you need maybe to do some software adjustments or something. And I remember, we first of all started digging into some really old school legacy documentations, so we at least knew from where to start. The second component is some kind of mobile device, so this NFC connection. So that means, probably you need to do something like analyze maybe how the Google Pay works, Apple Pay works, so you would be enabled payments using your mobile phone or maybe your smartwatch. And sure, there should be some probably middleware in the middle. So we already had our pay by bank infrastructure ready, but sure, there was something needed to connect everything in one line. So sounds easy, right? Well, not really. We definitely do not have time to deliver solution until 2028. We had, pretty tight time pressure because we were still a pre-seed startup, and it's still like amazes me that we were able to produce the POC of something nobody else did just in 5 months and provide proper MVP in only 9 months. Another thing was not enough staff. We were only like few of us. Later on, we had another newcomer grant us. Now sure, I'm VP of engineering and so on, just those fancy titles. But I joined as an engineering team lead. And when I now work with my engineering managers or team leads, I try to say one thing. Guys, your role is to do whatever is needed for any given moment of time. And my first tenor was like basically 90% of the time I did the hands-on coding or technical research. And that was my main responsibility. But the biggest problem for us, which we dealt with unknown technologies, and it was especially apparent with the POS terminals. Because when we tried, to find some information, the technology is basically decades old. And I remember our first calls, like when we had this was POS engineers, and actually I could probably call those guys, hey dad, hey grandpa, because the technology is that old. It's the same like you want to launch your shiny startup and you would be looking, all right, I need the amazing engineers who code in COBOL or Fortran. So basically something like that. So it's like the beginning was definitely not really easy when it comes to that. So naturally, no help from Stack Overflow or Google. The only thing which we had, thousands of pages of documentation which is written like the person already should know how the terminals work, how the payment world exists, and so on. And on top of that, we are dealing with payments. So there can be no compromise on security, on speed, and we are still in a really highly regulated environment, which it's Europe. So we had really zero margin for error. So what to do? This is just a photo from our vacation in Riga. So it's already, the team is a bit larger. It's really cool working at KM, believe me, So what we really tried to do. So first of all, we tried to focus on what we knew. Sure, we knew that maybe if you want to design some, new payment infrastructure, maybe you need to buy, those fancy IBM servers, rent some big Oracle databases or something, But we were just basically two mobile and two backend engineers. So we were what kind of common things we have? So all of us know basically Kotlin. Okay, all right, mobile engineers maybe do not know Spring Boot or something, but we're still building the POC, we're testing the hypothesis that it's even possible. So we decided, for example, to choose as a backend technology the Kotlin Spring Boot, just an example. Another thing, because especially when it comes to the POS terminals, the work, reading of documentation was for us extremely unpleasant. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, maybe somebody in the crowd really enjoys reading really tight documentation, but it definitely wasn't for us. So, I'm not talking about hundreds of pages, I'm talking about thousands of pages. So I remember we basically just separated basically books or chapters across all of our engineers. And I remember very funky meeting when finally we got the chance to communicate to one of the POS engineering experts, and he was asking us, all right, so how the data is being transferred, how do you do this and that? And I remember during that call, all of our engineers were present because there was no single person who would know everything. So, if the question A would be asked, then the answer A would be also maybe answered by Thomas, the second answered by me, maybe the third one by Elvis, and so on. The next thing, especially when it's really related to the previous topic, actually, when there is this kind of agile, incrementary mindset. But when you're building something really unknown, it's so hard to estimate when you will do it. But still, in order to keep this motivation, you still need to agree on some kind of deadlines. So really try to do that. Okay, I have no idea how much time it takes, but let's maybe try to deliver it by Wednesday. So there was some internal engine and motivation to do something, And sometimes when you're dealing with all those unknown things, well, you get probably a bit, tired. So the planning of recharges, especially me as a engineering lead, I really tried, to switch the guys from initiative A to B. So if somebody spends a week on the documentation, then maybe next time I would be all right, maybe you want to rewrite the Bitbucket pipelines to GitLab or something. Just an example, yeah. And the most important thing, which was also addressed by previously, that when you're building some kind of new thing, and in our case it was really apparent when during the POC stage, damn, it works, it really worked. So what we still have something missing for the fully productional MVP, but we already need to probably think about building a new team, looking for smarter people where we are, and we did it. So when our MVP was already ready, which we could at least show for something like for merchant and so on, we already knew what to do, because we had already smart people who would say, okay, maybe here can be an improvement, maybe we need to change this and that and so on. And I think it was really beneficial for us. So one new person sits here actually. And the final thing, it's never easy. So just don't think that it's and maybe everything what they said maybe sounded easy, but no, I don't think so actually. You just should never give up. For me personally, it was like multiple times I thought like I'm kind of like useless, but next time, so basically just imagine that you just don't need to give up, just need to try and try and try again. And in the result, then you have a revolutionary payment technology which really did put the waves across the whole world. And maybe the main message, especially from my side, is that I have already like 15 years in an industry, and at some point I was really got used to be this like walking documentation when some engineer comes to me with some iOS and Android questions, and I don't need Google, I don't need Stack Overflow, I can answer the question right away. And I come to this absolutely new thing where I'm so frustrated I just can't find the answer right away. But at some point I was like, I remember I spoke to Elvis maybe like 3 months later, like, man, I don't feel that I'm doing something. I mean, I feel so useless basically, what to do. So, every single time, when you are dealing with the unknown, you should be able to remember what it took for you to take you maybe to the previous level where you were in a really elite level. So, just the most important thing is for sure is not to give up. And I really see that in our team it really worked out, because like really recently we had yet another workshop with some super crazy idea where other engineering leads were present like back then. And the one thing I noticed that those engineering leads maybe and other like product people were a bit scared because it was something new and yet again unknown. And then I took a look at the faces of our team. And they were calm like Belgians, because they are just used to know nothing at all. So yeah, I'm sorry that I did not, I did not went too much into the detail, about what kind of technologies do we use, how it's working, Well, maybe it's not a good place to share a world-class, technology or something, But in the result, it really worked for us. So for me being a single member in April 2021, now have 28 product and engineering people just in our domain who are responsible for driving this payment technology forward. And I really believe that really soon all of you will definitely know what's the Kevin about. So thank you. If you have any questions now, I will enjoy them.